I've always been a man of strong conviction. Of course, it's an issue that I've had even very senior lawyer friends, including senior advocates of Nigeria, saying why not wait a little longer? Why not give some time? But for me, from my childhood, one of the decisions I had taken at the formative stage of my life was that I would never use my hand to apply for a job. And of course, after being called to bar, being ascertained and confirmed as a lawyer and a legal practitioner in Nigeria, I'm not under an obligation. There is no requirement as to the number of years you must be in practice before you can start a firm of your own. So me, it's not really a question of age. It's the rationale behind it. And clearly, with the kind of practice that I am into, public interest lawyering, it requires a lot of independence, which you may not get working under somebody. There's nothing wrong in working under somebody. There's nothing wrong in giving more years into practice before you have your firm. But once you are ready, you have the intellectual wherewithal, you have the material resources, the idea is a good one. There is nothing inhibiting it. So for me, there can't be a better time than now. It depends on what we call experience. Because for me, as I said, once you ascertain a legal practitioner in Nigeria, once the Council of Legal Education has deemed you fit, both in character and in learning, once you ascertain by the legal practitioner, by the Council for Legal Education in Nigeria, to be called to the Nigerian bar, the implication is that you have been found worthy in character and in learning. The experience is okay. There is nothing bad in working for a number of years before you can stand on your own. But I've always asked that, look, in this age and time, the practice of law has become very easy. It is no longer a question of those years when even access to law reports was a matter of mystery. And it was only the gods, in quote, in the profession that has access to legal materials. But today, a lawyer of 1 month can have access to as much material as it requires with just access to the internet. And beyond that, I've always said that, look, no, you can't be perfect. Even the most respected lawyers in Nigeria, the oldest lawyers in Nigeria, they still learn. Nobody stops learning. So experience itself is relative. But what is important, as I've said, is that once you are persuaded that you have the intellectual wherewithal and the material resources, you can be independent. There is no inhibition. I'm not the first lawyer that is starting practice on its own at a very early stage. So experience is relative. I believe I have what it takes to be on my own. But that doesn't mean that I will not be working with lawyers who are older than me in practice. Of course, I have very senior lawyers I'm close to. As lawyers, relationship is very important. So definitely there will be cases that you need to speak with other senior lawyers to have their input. Everybody does it. Even the people that are the gods, in quote, as I said earlier in the profession, they still learn from others. So as young as you are, once you are devoted, you don't stop learning. It is difficult to give a straightforward answer for obvious and apparent reasons. Here is a government that was better, with a mantra of change, with a strong message that things will no longer be done as they have been done over the years. And of course, Nigerians were willing. Nigerians were ready and prepared for an era of change. But the tragedy today is that the more we look for the change, the more invincible the change becomes. If you want to assess the government in terms of economy, the government has performed below average. There is no argument about that. We are in economic recession. There is no clear direction on how soon we are going to leave the current state of economic quagmire in the country. You look at anti-corruption. Of course, if you have followed my positions on issues, you know I'm strongly in support of the anti-corruption drive of this government. And I've had cause to make strong statements on it, to even disagree with my profession, even with the MBA on issues that pertains to corruption. So I am unrepentantly committed to the fight against corruption. But then it is not holistic. It is not comprehensive. there are still insinuations that there are persons in power who, because of their relationship with the government of the day, have not been touched. That is a perception that should worry all of us. And of course, you look at national unity. The government of President Buhari has done very little to unite the country. And it's a tragic, because it's particularly painful when you take note of the fact that the strongest campaign against President Buhari was that he was a divisive figure. He was a pro-nothing person. He was a person who does not understand the diversity of the country. And look at what has happened. In terms of appointments, in terms of federal character, this government has done terribly bad. I've always been interested in competence, but you can find a competent person in all parts of the country. So President Buhari, even in terms of national unity, has not done enough. Look at the killings by the Fulani herdsmen. It is as if we are having a state within a state. So the government has failed. We can commend the government in the area of the fight against Boko Haram. Because you are aware that before this government, before the inception of this government, there were territories that were under the full control of the insurgents. But this government admirably has done so much to curtail the menace of the Boko Haram. But then, as I said, you have this issue of Fulani herdsmen that is ravaging the northern part of the country and even the southern part of the country. And it seems the political leadership is not ready to tackle it. So assessing the government as a whole, I would say yes, there's some indication of political will in the area of corruption. But the fight against corruption will not put food in the stomach and the table of hungry Nigerians. That is not enough. The government must display and exude a clear political will to not only revamp the economy, but to fight corruption holistically. Until that is done, we cannot give this government a plus. My position is that first, the division of the Senate, whether to confirm the nomination or to reject same, is absolute. It is not. It cannot be a subject of judicial review. In other words, you cannot go to court to say that the Senate has no right to reject it. It is forum domestico. It is an internal affairs of the Senate. So starting on that, but then, as I said, the requirement as to quorum must have been met. For now, there is no controversy on that. Once the requirement as to quorum of the Senate has been met, once the number of persons required was satisfied at the time of the sitting, there is no question of legality. So, and also, once the standing rules of the Senate, the standing orders of the Senate were complied with, you cannot question the confirmation. But beyond that, I have said that, look, the president has the power under Section 11 of the Interpretation Act to make acting appointment, to appoint persons in acting capacity. And my argument is simple, that look, appointment in acting capacity does not require legislative confirmation or legislative affirmation or approval. It is for the executive, particularly in this case the president, to say that let someone act in an acting capacity. And Marco was appointed in that capacity November 9, 2015, if I'm not mistaken. And I've argued that the rejection of his substantive confirmation, his substantive nomination for chairmanship, does not affect the acting appointment earlier made by the president. So, to that extent, Marco remains the acting chairman of the commission, pending either when the Senate reconsiders his decision, if the president resubmits a request, or the president submits a fresh person for consideration. Until that is done, Marco remains the acting chairman of the EFCC. We've always had a question of investigation in the country. It is not peculiar to the EFCC. It is a prosecutorial issue in the country that affects all prosecutorial agencies, inclusive of the police, the ICPC, the EFCC, and even the state security agencies. It appears clearly, and it is commonsensical, that we don't have the manpower and the technical wherewithal to conduct clinical and forensic investigation. So EFCC seems to have issues in that area. But on here, people have said, oh, they are being too dictatorial, like we had in the case of the judges, that they are being too draconian. And I said, what is draconian about it? What is draconian about it? So what we should emphasize is manpower. EFCC personnel should be trained and retrained in the art of investigation. Because once the investigative process is faulty, it is difficult to secure conviction. So that is an area that requires a whole lot of improvement. I think we have to be very careful, not only to distill the issues properly, but also to assess the issues distinctively and objectively. The right to legal representation is a constitutional right under Section 36 of the Nigerian Constitution that is available to all accused persons. You must note that. And also, presumption of innocence is a constitutional right under Section 36, subsection 5 of the 1999 Constitution. So only a court of competent jurisdiction can make a finding of guilt, or a not guilty verdict in every criminal trial. So let us not say lawyers are defending criminals. But this is not to say that there are no bad eggs in the profession. Of course we know, of course it is commonsensical, Nigerians have seen, it is self-evident, that we have seen very senior lawyers in Nigeria who have deployed one technicality or the other to defeat the ends of justice, to stall and delay criminal trials in the country, especially when it affects the elites. And unfortunately, it is a very senior lawyers that are the vanguard of this. So you have lawyers filing frivolous applications to stall trial. You have seen the embarrassing case of the Senate president. It is a scandal, it is a shame on the country. It should make everybody angry that a matter that the Supreme Court has ruled on, you still have lawyers going to court to litigate it, going to court to stall the process, even when the highest court in the country has said the trial should continue, that the CCT has jurisdiction. The Saraki, because he's the Senate president, can afford as many senior advocates as he wants. And they deploy all manner of embarrassing, unconstitutional, illegal, arbitrary, whimsical, unprofessional, unethical, call it every name you want to call it, tactics, just to stall the ends of. So those ones are highly condemnable.
I should take you up on that. How cheap is it to hire senior advocates in Nigeria? Because I mean, it appears very cheap to me, because you see individual marshalling 40, 13 senior advocates. I mean, how cheap is it really?
I'm not going to give you a figure, but I can tell you it is very, very high. It is astronomically high. It is scandalously high. And with respect to the learned silks in the country, for me, we need a radical reform in the legal profession. I know as a fact that there are briefs that litigants pay as much as 800 million, as much as 400 million. Yes, to hire an SN. And it becomes like a court-like kind of title, where only the privileged few will get it. They use it to oppress the junior lawyers in the system. Of course, all of us aspire to be senior advocates. I hope to be one day, but it has to be on merit.
Okay, so how long do you think it will take you to actually get to that stage, senior advocate?
I'm not desperate for it. Okay. Once you are 10 years at the bar, you are eligible to apply. And for those of us who are into public interest lawyering, who are human rights lawyers in court, it has always been a challenge getting it. My role model, the late Gani Fawemi, nearly lost it. It was when he was close to his grave that the legal profession deemed it fit to give one of the most cerebral lawyers in Nigeria the title of an SA. There is no lawyer that is more renowned in this country than Gani Fawemi. We are what we are today because of Gani Fawemi. The law reports I have in my library today is because of Gani Fawemi. Before the Gani Fawemi came into the profession, it was only few that could get access to law reports. But Gani liberalized the practice of law. Gani liberalized local standard. Because of Gani Fawemi, any Nigerian can walk into the court and institute a fundamental right action. And the 2009 rule says local standard is not required. That is because you have people like Gani Fawemi who follow local standard. In the case of Adesanya, President of the Federal Republic. In the case of Akilo and State. In the case of National Assembly and the President of the Federal Republic. When Gani contested the payment of remuneration in dollars to the former Minister of Finance, Okonjo-Iweala, and he won. The case of Akilo, the state and Akilo, where Gani went to court on the murder of Delegiwa, and the court said, you're your brother's keeper, you have the right to come to court. So for those of us who are public interest lawyers, it is Gani Fawehinmi, it is the legacy of Gani Fawehinmi that has given us the footing to speak in the country today. But the legal profession saw no need to honor it. Even Femi Falana, SN, he was just given recently. The Fred Abaje who just died, a very prominent lawyer in the country, human rights lawyer in the country, I'm aware he applied more than twice, he was denied. So you have this profession that seems to be aggressive to those of us who are into public interest litigation. But like Gani said, there will never be a meeting point for the purpose of becoming an SN. If because of our struggles, if because of agitation in the profession, if because of the position we have taken on issues, the profession says we should not be given, we will be grateful to posterity, we will be grateful to history. But once we are eligible, we will apply. I'm not going to mention a specific case to you, but if you are someone that has followed my public advocacy, even before my call to the Nigerian bar, I don't want to sing my praises. I'm just 28 today, and with all modesty, I think some people are beginning to take Inibehe Effiong serious in this country, in the area of public advocacy, because when we started, people will look at that, who is this small boy? Why are you always the one talking? I've taken up cases, I've taken up public advocacy driven cases that have made me to come in collision with the leadership of the country, of my state, with the establishment. You are aware of the case of the Union 44, where 44 students were criminally, dubiously, immorally, and unethically arrested by the Nigerian police, thrown into the dungeon. Some of them spent as more as a year before they could get out of detention. I was still an undergraduate, and I said, this cannot happen. I took up the matter. I was not a lawyer then. We went on the street protesting. I organized press conferences. I secured free legal representation for them. To the glory of God, all of them were discharged and acquitted. You're also aware of the case of Odurukpana, a master degree holder of Coventry University, United Kingdom, whose father, a politician, a prominent political stalwart in Akwa Ibom, a member of the PDP, was assassinated. The police report said the murder was politically motivated. But because you had this dubious government of Godswill Akpabio that took pride, senseless pride, senseless arrogance in the death of its citizens. After the man was killed, the government of Godswill Akpabio framed up the only son, surviving child of the man, thrown him into detention and accused him of killing his father. He was the only son of his father. He had no reason to kill him. The police report said it was politically motivated. Like the several cases of assassination in Akwa Ibom under Godswill Akpabio. Of course, I took it up. Yes, I took it up. We went on protests. We did all sorts of things. By the grace of God, he was discharged and acquitted. But the killers of the later Odurukpana has not been found. And the media must help people. The media must help Akwa Ibom people. Because today, you have Godswill Akpabio as the minority leader of the Senate. But this is a man under whose regime, as a governor, several Nigerians were killed, were assassinated. The late Udonwa, Engineer Udonwa, who was killed, whose mother was raped and killed. The Kenyan brothers were killed. Albert Ukpana was killed. Even my close friend, the late Imomana, who was charged on trump-up charges, he died on the way while coming for the trial. So many assassinations. Even the police confirm it. Nobody has called Akpabio to answer for the bloody era in Akwa Ibom. I'm not even talking about the mass looting of the resources of the state. And this is the same man, the same Senate that has refused to confirm Marco. Why shouldn't I be angry that you have Godswill Akpabio, the likes of Saraki sitting in the Senate, lecturing us on anti-corruption? It's an assault on our collective intelligence. Because this was a man under whose regime as a governor, we had nearly 3 trillion of allocation. He has not given account. And that is my anger with Marco.
Sorry, you're saying Marco?
That is the acting EFCC chairman. Yeah, I'm very angry with him.
Marco.
Ibrahim Marco.
Okay.
Because recently, an audio tape was leaked to the whole world. Thanks to Sahara reporters. Thanks, credited to Sahara reporters. A platform that has come to speak for Nigerians. A platform that has come to do what the traditional media cannot do. And when they say Sowore is a rascal, I said that all of us should be rascals. Fight the political establishment in Nigeria. There was this audio tape alleging that a brother to Godswill Akpabio by name Inibehe Effiong was boasting, in quotes, in the audio, of his connection with the acting EFCC chairman. Marco even came out issuing a disclaimer that he does not know anything about it. The man was arrested. Till today, nothing has been heard about the arrest in respect of the corruption case against him. How about Godswill Akpabio? Despite the petitions against him, Ibrahim Marco is sitting on those petitions like Lamode did. So when I said the president should not use corruption to fight corruption, I am saying that beyond the sentiment, we should look into the records of the acting EFCC chairman. We support his courage. We want him to do better, but he needs to set up. He needs to set up and needs to do so very urgently.